Oh, let me put on a little background. And yeah, we're here. We're here. Ah, somebody has arrived. Yeah, we're just warming up. We'll let the nice picture of this kind of Gaian scenario. Let the tom pour in the back. Hello, Lee. I'll come on camera in a moment. Let me see that all my sound is good. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. And I guess my face will be showing up when my voice shows up. Hello, Max. Well, yeah, I know something I did notice that YouTube seems a little wonky today. Hello, Jet Pet. I'm really glad that you enjoyed the other flavor of videos I'm making. I guess I'll go off on that a little bit. You know, to me, mysteries, being a mystic, and art all go together, and art has many ways of being expressed. I happen to be a musician. Been a musician almost all my life. Hello, Gas for Jazz. And so for me, to really kind of go off on something that I really love, that's part of my art of making music, really goes very well with my being a mystic. They're part of the same world. In many ways, the mystic tries to turn into regular words and regular language and of normal communications, turn that, you know, take their journeys and put it into words. Musicians, you know, depending on whether they're writing the words, will turn it into more of a poetry, which is different than prose. And then, of course, the oral, that's AU, oral or sonic, or the soundscape that would go with those words. And the particular company that I chose to really highlight, which is Weber Speakers, one of the reasons I do that is because I'm not they make speakers for everybody, and since my music is more of less, it's certainly a lot less angry. It's not a music that's based off of, a lot of the heavier music sounds like everybody's, it would go with, an Avengers, attacking the enemy type of music. There's a certain martial element to a lot of the heavier music that, I mean, again, most of us are sitting in seats, either listening to the music or at keyboards. The whole martial spirit as a keyboard warrior is a little goofy, a little insincere. Might let off some steam, but sometimes letting off steam when there's actually a place for that steam to be applied for remedial action. There's a little bit of a circle jerk nature to that. But anyway, enough with my disparaging remarks about you know, crunch rock in the, I guess, in the current atmosphere when things are really happening. I mean, this is, to me, it's no time to be pretending going off to battle when there's a real battle. But the real battle is a psychological battle. So anyway, let me get back into the chat, see if there's anything happening that I need to be paying attention to. Where is this? Here we go, my live dashboard. So Gas for Jazz, it's been, I haven't seen you for a long time. I remember when I used to do the earlier stuff with GMOP and the Ambassador, you were kind of around. That still happens, but it's been going on behind the scenes. It might come out in front because it's been some years and things have happened. So tonight I'm going to be reading a little bit of the Sophianic narrative, because it seems to me, if I'm going to be having a conversation of "Can't you hear me, Gnostic?" and referring to a narrative that, regardless of, you know, asking people, you know, you really want to avail yourself of this, the chances of them actually doing it will be, well, some will and some won't. Some will, most won't. It was really interesting how you know, after making my gear video, I went off into all kinds of geeky things. A couple of years ago, I wanted to make do-it-yourself amps, some of the classic amps, and some of them that were classic and then maybe were up for a year and then disappeared, and they're really great. And so I can kind of follow a schematic, and to build an amp, you better be able to follow a schematic. But I never study electronics formally. So again, I'm doing a lot of self-teaching, and I have self-taught myself a lot of things. But when I can get formal education, I do very well, especially if you have somebody who knows how to teach and then can answer the questions. Because invariably, if somebody has a good teaching style, I have unique places where maybe I'm not catching, but I know where I'm not catching it, or I can lay it out in a place where, as I say my narrative, it's obvious to the person teaching me where I'm stuck, and then they can come in and fix that. Similarly, when it comes to cosmologies, understanding the narrative will produce coherence in what one is doing. Basically, like, in other words, when I'm looking at my schematic, I might be able to solder every piece and place every resistor and every capacitor where it is. But what I was doing with the schematics is trying to figure out what that initial signal that comes out of your guitar and then gets sent into the amp. Because when you're looking at an amp schematic, it all starts with where the guitar plug comes in, and there's a signal. And then that signal goes in so many different ways, and it goes through different things, and basically, you know, and basically it's starting as a signal from a guitar that a magnet was able to take that information. And this is where I really got into the mystic part of this whole amplification and sound, was that a sound is reproduced on a string, on an electric guitar. Then you have magnets, and you can use ferrous magnets, but the better magnets are the Alnico magnets. They're better quality. So anyway, you produce a sound in real space, okay? And there's a way of taking that frequency and all the information produced by that string, give it to a magnet, and the magnet will then turn that signal, you know, amplify that signal through its magnification and send it out. And it's carrying everything that you did to that string, from your finger pressure to the pick pressure. It's just amazing. And then as it leaves your guitar, carrying this, what was once kinetic, real-world information, and then it enters the amp, and it goes through all of these things of tonal conversion. And I was just watching how this electrical impulse that is basically something carrying data. This is a data package that was released, produced by your hands on strings of a guitar, put into a magnet, and then sent out the guitar into an amplifier. And to watch how they attach all these resistors and capacitors, and what each one does is it takes the original information that you put into the guitar, and then the amp changes what that signal was, and then to see it emerge outside the speaker. But the most amazing thing was watching, I guess what we're going to call an electrical impulse, and how it can carry initial information, and then as it goes, how information can be taken out, pulled away, whatever. The trip with tube amps of when that signal now gets sent up into a hot place, and it basically creates a cascade of electrons that all have this signal in it into the tube that gets, and then there's a collector tube that basically most of them will go to. But there's that space between when they come out of the hot, go into the ether, and then get onto the collecting plate, and then eventually go out and get into your speaker. Wow. I mean, I just thought that was amazing, because what we're really dealing with, again, is something from the real world turned into a data packet, and then how that data, and how it holds memory. And that's what I really came up with. That electricity, whatever this is, and Tesla knew it more than almost anybody else. I'm quite sure Eric Dollard is on the ball too. But it holds memory like water does. Everybody goes, water holds memory. Well, as I'm kind of, watching these schematics, I'm realizing electricity holds memory. Wow. Wow. So in other words, like water, which is a medium, electricity is another medium. And my guess, it is the medium of the ether, which is why you can get electricity from tapping into the ether. Hello, Deborah Gale Hickman. So anyway, that was my mystical journey following a signal into a schematic of a simple guitar amp. And me looking at a schematic of this particular amp I'd like to build, and it's nice because it has a built-in tremolo but no reverb, and just never quite realizing. And then also I'm trying to understand, I'm going to be putting, as I put in all these circuits, why, what exactly, how is the circuit moving? And it was amazing to watch that process. Hello, Fractal Truth. And JetPet, I did turn up my my input volumes. I had JetPet. I had noticed when I did a little playback, how sometimes I was low and then I would go up, and I was like, I wonder what that is. But then I realized I thought I might be playing guitars during something, and they were a lot louder than my voice, and I didn't want to overdrive the signal, so I had backed off on my signal. So I think what was happening, there's a certain amount of something in the signal that tries to boost you, to give you kind of like a compression, or make sure you reach a certain limit. But anyway, I turned it up. So anyway, let me get into my software. Let me change my browser setting. So right now, the main site for John Lamb Lash, as far as his videos go, is the Mandela Effect Decoded. And although that ended after 64, and he had a few other supplementary, and he's been quiet for about a month or so. He does now, there are other people who have been learning from John Lash, because to me it's not about following, it's about you learning. You find somebody, you're getting something from it, so you continue to go there. And this person's name is Hans Carlson, and he does a lot of mirroring of John's work, and so does Ginny Thwaite. It was Thwaite, Thwaite, and these are people who, and I know Ginny has been supporting John Lash for a long time.
And but anyway, so Hans has put up something, and then I found out he has a website also, besides kind of mirroring some of the work off of Metahistory. Metahistory is where the work, the actual work and scholarship in a written form of John Lash is. There are a few other sites, but Metahistory is really where you can really find everything. And so this, I just really want to say, it looks like I don't have a particularly, yeah, I have a few people. I get that problem. Hello, Mari. But anyway, I'm going to go a little deep into the Sophianic narrative because I guess it might be the only way that it gets presenced, and it's important. The more I journey, and then to try and find solutions, more and more it's just obvious that the real solution is getting people to remember who we are, where we are, what we're connected to. And without those things, we're clueless in creation. We're in another story written for us that is not in our, is to exploit us. And if you do not, and so it's just like, and so the exploitive story, everybody's kind of familiar with that. But the mythos that we lived in for hundreds, if not, or at least tens of thousands of years, is not so accessible. And it is, I feel it is, since it's where we arise, you want to know about it. Because really, being clueless in creation, I would say, is probably why the world is such a mess. And there's a couple of vectors why. I mean, for me, one of the problems is another species of human was introduced a couple of thousand years ago, and it was not as robust physically, and it was not as robust intellectually. It was an inferior version, and from what I can tell, it was based on one of the original versions, but the original version was not workable for the exploiters, so they had to chip away and make some differences and introduce things, and they came up with something that would work for them. Unfortunately, this thing also could breed with us, and so I really and then of course, as they bred and became the armies, you can, if you really can kind of see how the sickness spread. I really don't want to get into that because I want to get into the reading. So let me switch over. Oh, that's right. I keep on switching my pages here. So hello, Doc Illusion. I'm glad you're here. I was just about to do some reading. Just about to begin. So my face will disappear, but not my voice. The fall of the wisdom goddess. And then there's an animation here, and it's an interesting. It says, in the animation, the narrator speaks about Sophia Christos as being the emanating deities of the human genome called Anthropos, in the core of the galaxy called Pleroma. However, in John Lash's rendition below, Christos has been changed to Thelete, the intended, so as not to be confused with Christ, the Messiah, according to Christianity. I've listened to just about everything John has ever recorded and put on YouTube. And he does a really good job of explaining the Christos, which is a unique emanation. And I also believe that the Christos was not a syzygy. I believe it seems to be a solo emanation. And interesting, if you read Tolkien's creation story, it is interesting how his equivalent of the Aeons or the Ainur were mainly in pairs, but there were occasionally unattached energies that were either, you know, unattached male energies, unattached female energies, but most of the energies were kind of set up in syzygies or pairings. And so it's only been in a few of them I've heard them, but he did a really beautiful treatment of the Christos aeon and the chrism. There is a this chrism. There's a quality that makes things that mellows things out and allows reduces friction. You know, like kind of like anointing oil. I don't wouldn't get too lost because I want to get into here, but he really did a beautiful job. And so anyway, I'm going to get into this. I'm going to leave the whole other scenario text out of this conversation. So, no other myth from any time or culture, no other spiritual teaching, no matter how lofty or elegant, exposes and explains the origin and operation of deceit, as does the vision story of the mysteries. Nothing else in human reckoning comes close to this elucidation, not remotely close. The fall of the wisdom goddess. Here in a 9-part synopsis, again, I will obviously read something so we can come away and then not go through all of it. Here in a 9-part synopsis is one version of the sacred myth of Sophia, the fallen goddess of the pagan mysteries. The fallen goddess scenario is not the invention of the author John Lash. It is his reconstruction of a mythic narrative developed by ancient seers who applied it as a vision story for guiding humanity to evolve interactively with the living planet Gaia. I consider this complex narrative to be the singular and paramount explanation of cosmic purpose produced by human imagination. Truly a myth to guide the species, and that was something that John Lamb Lash wrote in October of 2010. Note, in May of 2011. My recovery and reconstruction, this is John adding his note, my recovery and reconstruction of the fallen goddess scenario is the only full and coherent version of the Sophianic vision story of the mysteries to be presented by any scholar, yet it is still not complete. 3 key elements of the myth are missing: the creation of the moon, the separation of the sexes of the anthropos, and the arrival of the hunters from Orion, the first men to inhabit the earth, which is at that time exclusively populated by women. That last one is very interesting, and actually some information from that could come from another author that I sometimes reference with this kind of issue, and that's Anton Parks. Anyway, that's what John wrote, and I'm not going to put commentary in there. I'm going to move on. In its received form, the Sophianic vision story falls into the genre of astrotheogony, an account of celestial events, including the intentions, feelings, and actions of cosmic forces conceived as gods and goddesses. The version below demonstrates one possible way to render the myth, namely by placing it in an astronomical framework, thus, perhaps, making it more accessible to the modern mindset. This is not the only way to tell the myth, but after long consideration, I am convinced it may be the optimal way to introduce a Sophianic vision of the mysteries to the 21st century. So I'll stop there. So I want to say that I agree very strongly with the last thing he said. This is not the only way to tell the myth, but after long consideration, I am convinced it may be the optimal way to introduce a Sophianic vision of the mysteries to the 21st century. I'm actually going to stop reading and come onto the camera for a minute and look into the chat. Actually, maybe I won't go. Let me just take a quick look here on a video. Blah, blah, blah. Hey, Doc. Okay. Yeah, now everybody can see the chat. See, there you are in the chat. That last one is really important. Actually, I'm not going to put myself on the camera. And maybe I will. Okay. That last one, This may not be the only way to tell the myth, but after long consideration, I am convinced it may be the optimal way to introduce a Sophianic vision of the mysteries. Here's why I agree. This is how I got my gnosis, by reading what John had written, both online. I was part of the Gaian navigation experiment, which was not online. We would get emails that would have the audio files when John had released them. I mean, this was like from 2010 onward. The Gaian again, I'm not good with dates. I just remember the exquisiteness, because at that time I also had a little thing that I could listen things on, because I didn't have the same computer set up in a bedroom like I do now. And downloading these audio files and then putting on my earbuds and laying down in bed and listening to the latest installation of Sophia's correction of the Gaian navigation experiment. It was just really amazing stuff. It was an amazing time. John is an exceptionally good storyteller, provided that you have the resilience of spirit, and because when he has an edge to him. If you're not secure in yourself, you might go, "Oh, is he picking on me?" Where if you're secure in yourself, those things do not, they don't apply to you. So it's, for me, it was easy. It was easy to listen to, in the fact that I received it very well. But anyway, so that last thing is, so after years of plugging in properly, that's where the other stuff, what the other nonsense is, what the noise is, what the mimetics, the make-believe, the inversion, you can parse all of that out. You don't have a problem seeing that or finding that once you're plugged in, because now you respond from that gnosis. If you're not fully plugged in, your what appears as gnosis or reality will be different for you, because it's not a clear signal. You're getting two different signals. Much of the New Age writing is, from so many sources. It's a dump. It's cut and paste. It's cut and paste. That's what the New Age is. The New Age is one big cut and paste. And as I read more and more of the Nag Hammadi, I'm starting to realize that's one big cut and paste too. Judeo-Christian with some Gnostic stuff, and it's just kind of layered. And Kabbalah is part, and any of the mystic things that come out of the Judeo-Christian stuff is, obviously is more advanced, but it's still working from being clueless in creation. So the whole thing is, since I've plugged in, fully activated my connection with the planetary animal mother, and the ability to from that gnosis, look at what belongs to us and what has been given to us supposedly as part of that, and it really starts to get very, very easy to parse them out. So from the journeys that I've done, now years of sinking into this, and having my own, there's obviously there's the full immersion where you actually receive and are in the organic light, which is the full initiation. But then there's all the stuff up to that. John has had the organic light experience. I have not had that specific, as he describes it, experience. I see that it's more ephemeral and not congeal, and it's not presenting itself, because it is everywhere. Little diffuse thing, and everything fills up. But that unique thing, no. But plenty of shamanic and journey work, and also meditation, sinking into it, getting emotionally engaged, and then all of a sudden here comes here comes transmissions. So there is basically from the myth, as he's saying, I'm convinced this is the optimal way to introduce a Sophianic version. I agree, because it's how I entered it, and the expansion of that original narrative is huge. But those expansions, I feel, need to be done by the journeyer and the person exploring the mysteries. These are the extras that need to be given to you by the more simple form of the myth. In other words, the myth is kind of like the basic rough map. Then you enter the map and you start exploring the environment. And as you explore the environment, the mythos, first of all, comes alive, and it also expands. There is so much more richness that could be added, but were it added before you get the original myth, it would be basically, you have to kind of know the main roads before you explore the sides, because if you explore the sides before you know the main roads, it's bad. So I totally agree with John that the way, because I could have hours of commentary on small parts of this original narrative, and I'm quite sure he could too. And that's why he says this is the optimal way, and I agree. I couldn't agree more with him. So let me see what's going on in the live chat, since I'm talking up a storm here. Hello, Nish. Hello, Darcy. I'll make sure I didn't miss it. And Jessica. Hello. Or Jessica. Oh, yes. Oh. I'm kind of recognizing that, I don't know, I think I recognize the avatar. Jessica? Okay. I think I get it. Okay, thank you, Mari. I appreciate that. So anyway, we're going to get back, and I'll put it on screen so you can see it instead of my face. So, this sacred narrative is the sole planetary myth in the world that describes the origin of the solar system, the Earth, and the human species, and situates all of this in a galactic perspective. Be it understood that a myth need not be fantasy or falsity, but a veracious way of describing events of cosmic scope, including the galaxy where the Earth is located. Sophia is the astro-theological term for a power surge from the galactic core that impacted the rotating arms. The fall of the goddess is an eruption from that core. This is an animistic myth, attributing the equivalent of emotion, ideation, and intention to the cosmic energies of the galaxy, imaginatively realized as gods and goddesses. I addressed the predictable objections to cosmic animism in a related essay. And the book he has put out is Not in His Image. So just so you might know what he's referring to here, Not in His Image contains both a short synopsis and, in another rendering, a full expansion of the 9 episodes. Or Ever the Earth Was will be helpful in orientation to the unique significance of this myth. Readers may also benefit from looking at the overview. The Gaia mythos is an attempt to render in mythopoetic form as a prose poem, but incomplete with 11 episodes of 16 online. The commentaries on the prose poem contain a considerable amount of astronomical detail with correlations to the myth. Okay, now I just want to stop here for a second and consider the amount of work that John Lash has done with this very specific subject over the years. to the point where, almost like many of the other things that have been around for a long time, there's a myth, commentaries. And so the reason why I would like to get the myth known, where there's no mistaking, people plugged in, so that we can then engage in commentaries from that. And I think looking at other commentaries would be rich. I mean, for many of, even for the Abrahamic religions, the Talmud is commentaries on the Torah. The whole Sunni tradition of Sunni Shia, I mean, they both have their commentaries, but the Sunni tradition, because it's bigger, has endless commentaries. I mean, where the commentaries and in so many cases, like where the Talmud in many cases has replaced for certain section of those practitioners the Torah, although those say no, it's just our commentaries on the Torah. Torah's there. I mean, you could, but to me, there's a richness that is that John Lash has contributed to the restoration of the mysteries, which is what that, especially that part of the world, and also going into Europe and really all over the world, was how we lived on this planet, connected. The natural and the supernatural were a continuum. So anyway, back to him. What an amazing amount of work, and he's just alluding to it here. He has an overview, the Gaia mythos, commentaries. I mean, this is something this man did from his own intention, but it's obvious that he has been part of a greater collective. Okay, the Sophia myth in astronomical idiom. 1. In the galactic core. At a certain moment in the eternal becoming, a singularity arises in the core of one galaxy among countless galaxies in the universe. This singularity is a spontaneous rush of new potential, totally unconditioned and undefined. It emerges from that one universal source, which is the eternal dwell point of every galaxy, but in each galaxy standing unique so that originality can manifest through the universe. In each galaxy, the originator is the all-pervading presence, greater than any god, any single divine entity. It stands beyond time and space and matter, yet it comes to expression time and time again. Okay, let me read that again. It stands beyond time and space and matter, yet it comes to expression time and time again through the pleroma, the central vortex of a particular galaxy. I'm going to stop just for a second to say something. The originator is quite an interesting conversation, but it is one that can create going above our station, so to speak, station of utility. That's because the whole thing is to be effective. Anyway, to continue from the reading. Within the pleroma dwell the aggregate of cosmic gods, energy waves of the galactic dimension. They circulate around the core, massive currents of living luminosity thriving with sound, odor, even taste. Their form is a serpentine torrential streaming. Their substance a nougat. We'll say nougat. I hope you know what nougat is. I'll read it again. Their form is a serpentine torrential streaming. Their substance a nougat-like mass of self-generating luminosity. These pleromic currents receive the singularity of pure potential from the originator and spin it into expression. They convert the formless seed of originality into a standing wave design that can eventually appear in space, time, and matter beyond the galactic core. The originator imposes nothing on these cosmic designing powers, the generators or aeons. The singularity it releases to them is an undefined potential for novelty. I will read that again. The singularity it releases to them is an undefined potential for novelty, without signature, non-encoded. It has no pre-designed structure. It is pure, unconditioned possibility. The singularity is like a vast but infinitely soft tremor that erupts from the galactic core and spreads through the coral waves of the pleroma, the aggregate of aeonic torrents. Okay, I'm going to stop because John writes in a very rich style. I mean, I love it. And I'm going to come back into the dashboard and see how we're doing here. Hello, Callan. Good to see you. Darcy, who wrote this? John Lash wrote this. Part of it's not in his image, but I'm reading from his website because he's a pretty prolific guy. So even if I have his book and I've listened to things, I mean, the reason I listen to it because he is he's kind of a natural speaker with a capital S, and so each telling of the story is consistent, but it has sometimes like little, rich things that come out naturally. Okay. Wow. Okay, I think I better get back to reading. I'm going to read the last sentence so there's some continuity. The singularity is like a vast but infinitely soft tremor that erupts from the galactic core and spreads through the coral waves of the pleroma, the aggregate of aeonic torrents. In every case, when a singularity emerges in the galactic core, it comes to be designed differently by the aeons of each galaxy, who are infinitely creative, innovative, and playful. Playful is important. That's my words. Once designed, the singularity can be projected from the core into the outlying region of the limbs, the spiral arms circulating around the core. This region is the realm of a finite potential, the kenoma, contrasted to the infinite potential of the pleroma, the matrix of the generators. The spiral arms are regions of constant activity. Like a meal wheel, they grind out stars, planets, comets, and asteroids from the grist remaining of previous galaxies. The dema, the dense elementary matter arrays of the spiral arms, are chaotic and inorganic, consisting of atomic matter and even finer substance, mere quantum foam. Yet, the dema has self-organizing powers of a sort, so that it can form and reform itself plastically into the scaffolding and groundwork of many world systems. The endless reworking of matter in the spiral arms is subject to the mill-like mechanism of involution, including mass-bound attraction, repulsion, and differential rotation, forces that are entirely absent in the galactic core. Okay, I'm going to take a little break because then it becomes 2. Back to the live dashboard. And I'm just taking this in little breaks because, again, this John writes in a very unapologetic style. Basically, John has an intellect. He has a capacity to work with abstract thoughts, put them into language so that he can convey those thoughts. And there are certain people that will struggle with that. And, that's where I think being in a world of people who, if we, again, if we can recreate the world, then even those who don't understand are still living in the same world because we're all living in it. And there's always the most basic understanding. I mean, our cells understand this, because at one time all there was were single cells. And that was another thing when I was playing with the concept of the electrical signal, and where the pleroma seeded the spiral arms with panspermia, and how basically the DNA that now represents us, even though it's been messed with a bit, and some of it was, let's not go there. It's that the whole entire DNA package that would become us and greater was in that initial panspermia that would turn into the first microbe. So that even when you're seeing a microbe, because right now all there is a cell membrane, some cytoplasm, and some DNA coding, and this is what it can do at this time. That is the physical limitation of expression of that DNA at that time. It will have to build more to create greater things. But the entire package of encoding, including up to us and beyond, is in that one-celled organism. And we do have to get back to the garden, and much of the weed clearing is in our psychology. The weeds, the clutter, the overgrowth, the garbage, the dump that our minds have become. This is a psychological challenge. Anyway, back to the reading. So if you recall, this is a 9-part thing. This is now part 2. So we've gone through part 1. And over here is a little picture of a typical form of a lenticular spiral galaxy seen edge on. And as you can see, this little bulge in the middle, that's the pleroma. That's the galactic core. And there is some spin to that, because this is almost like a hurricane. And then these are what the spiral arms look like for this particular galaxy. But as you can see, it's denser towards the pleroma, and then as you go out further and further, the spiral arms are less and less dense. There's more edema here. Okay, the arms themselves are the conoma, the matter that isn't ionic or kind of what's the plasma. Okay. What is in plasma, as we come out here, this is the edema, but as you can see, it's pretty thick here. Anyway, on with the reading. And by the way, since we're in the Earth, if this were the Milky Way galaxy, it doesn't matter. But as far as like on the lenticular stuff, we're out over here. And the Orion galaxy is even a little bit further. The Earth is a little bit closer to the pleroma than the Orion galaxy. Okay. 2. A singularity encoded. Let me make sure that everybody can see what I'm reading. Yes, we can. The nougat-like mass of the galactic core pulses with the dance of alternating currents, gendered energies. Okay, that's an important sentence. The alternating currents. And then he lets you know what he means by what's alternating. Gendered energies. Okay. We'll read that again. The nougat-like mass of the galactic core pulses with the dance of alternating currents, gendered energies. The male currents stream through the pleromic mass with an encoring action, like filaments extruding from a sieve. The female currents stream with an expulsive power that hollows out the way before them. Encoring and decoring are the constant gender expressions of the generators. In one particular galaxy, A singularity from the originator is received by two aeons with the equivalent of gender, female and male. The aeon Sophia and her counterpart aeon Thelete. This name means intended or free will. In a tandem activity, these two balance the singularity between them and dance it into a particular design. That is a lot, and I just would like to unpack that a little bit. I'll unpack it from journeys, from shamanic exploration. Again, I'm not calling myself a shaman, but humans have shamanic journeying capacities. Whether or not once they journey they can do shaman work to their fellow person is another story. So to me, the ability to administer to people from your journeys is what, and to help your communities, what makes a shaman a shaman. To have a shamanic practice is something almost any human can have, and if you can, it behooves you to get with it. But with that last one, now what I find interesting is that sometimes it is posited that Sophia is one of the younger of the aeons, and that might have resulted in what was her foolish experimenting with the membrane of the pleroma. Interestingly for me, when I do kind of what I would call, trying to get where there's nothing, and then be just, again, using imagination to try and get there. There's only so much we can do in this current, but so when I say so much, it means it might not be, there might be some limitation, but we're quite incredible. And it seems to me wisdom would be one of the first emanations. If we consider something outside all creation, basically, I mean, I'm going to use a visual. I'm going to use a balloon. Now, for some people, they might say, "Oh, what you're going to really make your point, this should be a tube torus." I don't have a tube torus balloon. But let's imagine the originator is outside in a dimension, because it certainly appears to be that way. That is not ours. Let's say that the inside of this balloon is the galaxy that we see all around us. All the galaxies are floating in here. Okay, we're now the originator. Here's this little universe that we're putting all the galaxies that we see. All right, the Milky Way is somewhere in there. But right now, there's nothing in there other than the medium of your own self that you've kind of wrapped in. Basically, this is like a cell. Okay, this is the membrane, and in there is the stuff inside a cell. What do we call it in a cell? Protoplasm. Plasma. Okay, we're getting into the right territory. Now let's say, I mean, maybe we'll even pick this galaxy, but the whole idea to me, is that there's something outside. Now let's say we want the galaxy. Now let's say anything we as the originator put on the outside, we think it and we press it onto the outside of the balloon. And then what happens is it manifests into what we would call matter 3D reality on the other side of the balloon. Okay, so as the originator, I'm thinking, okay, I want to put a galaxy. So I touch there, and on the other side now, a galaxy appears. The reason I picked the balloon Because from this thing here, it would look like, oh, gee, we just have a galaxies around the periphery. Well, suppose I want to put a galaxy in the middle of that, because again, all I need is the membrane. I would press into the middle of there. I still have the membrane. I could press my finger into the membrane right in there. Okay, I'm now about in the middle. It'd probably help if I held it like this. You know, pressing it in. I can see my finger in the middle of the balloon, and I'm going to put my galaxy there. Then I'm going to move my finger, and I'm going to put a galaxy there. I'm going to even go towards the other side. I could do it from here, but put a galaxy there. And every place I think on this side of non-reality can express itself on that side of reality. If there was nothing in here, and then I was going to put something of myself in there to kind of get a pleroma going, I don't know, I think I might want to park wisdom in there. Now, maybe wisdom does come later. And I could be just wrong, because I happen to really like wisdom, and it seems to me like if you're going to make any decision, again, there's been no action, now we're going to get active. I would like to make wise decisions. And since she is paired with thelete, intention, which ties into will, free will, you can see why you would want your intentions in a world that no intentions have really been done yet, other than to get the process started, why you would want them to be wise. So I do struggle with her, with Sophia being one of the younger goddesses. It could be that I haven't had the definitive experience and whatever, and that my journeyings are coming from angles that are not appropriate. But to me, the real way that would be fun to get is a bunch of other people. I would love to have a one-on-one with John Lash. And not, you know, again, as a teacher to somebody who he has excited and brought into that world, and now created an ability. And so let's start doing the shamanics table. And I'm quite sure he does that with his kalikas. And that's another thing that I saw with John recently. He made very clear is that what I'm reading to you is planetary tantra. He also has Kala tantra, and that's with Kali and stuff. But planetary tantra is specifically with the Aeonic mother, Sophia. Getting into some of her other expressions is something I do want to get into. Hecate has become like so huge in my noosphere. Anyway, I want to get back onto the reading for a little bit. Well, actually, I'm going to check the live chat. Wow. The chat's a little on the interesting side tonight, ain't it? Okay, what's going on here? Whew. Okay, Jetpet. Yeah, I mean, I just want I'm looking into the chat, and I think you might know what I mean. So anyway, I'm going to get. Thank you, Nish, for saying that the balloon thing worked well. I mean, it was it came upon me during a meditation, and somebody, when they sent me for my birthday, somebody sent me a bunch of balloons, and I realized I hadn't thrown them out yet. Okay, so we're still in part 2. Now, when the word generator is used, please understand that's also the word aeon. Sophia is an aeon or a generator, and the pleroma is populated with these generators. Each Each generator is an energetic wave with inherent properties and characteristics. I like the word qualities, but properties and characteristics is probably better for most. As a current moving along optical fibers can carry signals, so do these waveforms carry vast arrays of configurated impulses. The receiving aeons impart to the singularity a select combination of their attributes, making a unique design never before manifested. By their combined activity, they imbue the singularity with a set of inherent properties derived from their own impulses. They encode its pure potential with definite properties that can unfold in a distinctive way when provided with a world system as a setting for those properties. In this instance, Sophia and Thelete design a life form, the template of a species, the Anthropos. The specific configuration of the Anthropos is an expression of the creative vision of this cosmic dyad, the pair of generators. The human genome originates in a dance of cosmic energies in the galactic core. So that was 2. I'm going to go in. I'll stop with 3. And if you know, my allusion to Hecate might give you, or Hecate as I like to say, might give you some illusion why I will stop at 3. And then continue at another time. 3. Projecting the Anthropos. With creative dance of Sophia and Christos completed. Now this is interesting that now Thelete and Christos have been, so probably a little thing here. With the creative dance of Sophia and Christos completed, the singularity is configured and ready to be released. In a collective act of emanation, all the aeons circulating the galactic core merge their currents to form a lattice, like a holographic plate. Using the lattice as a lens, the pleromic aeons in their entirety project the Anthropos into the outer realm beyond the bounding membrane of the galactic nucleus. Out there is the Kenoma, the zone of dark elementary matter arrays, the Dema, swirling in an immense carousel of the spiral arms. The encoded singularity will be seated in the Dema, where new worlds are constantly arising, so that the Anthropos can have a habitat, a world of its own in which to unfold its singular potential. Many strains of humanity can emerge from the template so projected, and there are many world systems rising and dissolving in the galactic limbs, providing ample opportunity for these strains to take root and develop. I'm going to skip the next one because I feel it's unnecessary to the greater myth. And anyway, humanity is not the progeny of divine beings made in their image, but the expression of the divine imagination of the generators who design and project cosmic singularities into free-form manifestation in myriad worlds. The pleromic aeons project the Anthropos into the galactic limbs with a precise target intention of location. I'm going to stop there, because I really and I just feel there's a lot has been going there. If anybody says, "Oh, rad, please continue," I will continue. I didn't realize my face was on here and I hadn't put on the thing, but I guess I read well enough. Put my face back on, go into the live chat, and give my voice a temporary break. And take a little bit of my cigarette. I started the cigarette before the show, and I'm still, an hour later, still have half of it. Gonna see who's still here. 3 participants. I wonder how they kind of, because it says 11 watching, so and obviously other people have typed in the chat, because usually the participants are who's typing in the chat. And I have to admit, one of the things that I like to do more is not use the word Sophia, because the word Sophia is a Greek word and it means wisdom. And the aeon of this planet is wisdom. To me, she is Mama, but she is also the quality of wisdom. And that is something that I think sometimes using the name Sophia, because it doesn't also mean wisdom in our language unless we presence it. And the wisdom nature of Sophia is paramount and core. Now, Doc, I don't even know I'm not even sure what's happening in the chat at all. I mean, there's a few things I can make sense of a few things in the chat right now, but not most of it. No. Where was I? I was about to have a glass of water, a drink of water. I love the 3 owls. Agartha should be confusing, because I mean, to me, until somebody pops out of the bottom of Mount Shasta, we should just leave it alone. And if David Wilcock and Corey Good are talking about it, that's like a flag of like, uh-oh, it's about to get really stupid in here. Well, the chat is something I do respond to, and I'm not letting you distract. That's why I'm just looking down at amazement at a chat and wondering how did that, I mean, I'm having a conversation and I'm looking at the chat and it's like, I mean, is there another stream going on that people are writing in my chat? It's a little interesting. Yeah, well, the blue chickens and the Argarthans are part of the same, because now that the blue chickens have left, now the Argarthans are filling the role the blue chickens deserted. So again, blue chickens gone, Argarthans in. What does that say about Argarthans? Because we know what we think about blue chickens. I would recommend now, if you know the regarding information for John Lash, not everybody's in the mood for the Mandela Effect Decoded, although I think it was brilliant. Not only, I mean, again, somebody actually made sense, rhyme and reason, and showed the Mandela effect to be tied in something that Sophia was doing. So for me, there is actually a YouTube channel dedicated to making sense of something that was quite confusing to a lot. I mean, he put in. I didn't have any perspective on it until I listened to John put it together. And again, it's the big picture. Some of the details for certain people might, oh, you know about that, but you can see the rollout. And since he explained it, creating, I mean, the amount of work he put into decoding the Mandela effect is so impressive. But if for some reason that's not, I mean, again, I'm trying to get where I'm having a conversation about the same subject. And again, the new age haze has been a horrible miasma on people who know something is wrong with the creation story we grew up with. And the most hidden creation story is the one that that eludes most people, and it's not what's up there. The main proponent of this one restoration of this information is John Lash. I'm sure he has a fair amount of people listening to him, but I mean, there are replays of cartoons that have millions of views. So when somebody, like myself, looks at what's wrong with the world, it isn't the controllers or the elite or the globalists. I mean, they certainly are a problem, but nobody, the globalists are not making 10 million people watch something about SpongeBob SquarePants. The global controllers are not making 10 million people watch that, while only 2,000 people listen to something John Lash does. That is self-initiative of what people find value in. And when you start seeing what people value, man, you want to call in the Bone Mother. Take us all out and then restore the one. I mean, I'm serious. The psychology of the mass of humanity is a garbage dump. It is a wrecking room. It is clueless in creation. It is madness. It's terrible. I couldn't do a show on JL's take on the Mandela effect because it took him 64 videos. And it goes into some controversial stuff. And it has to. The organized religions of this world are a big fucking problem, man. Psychologically. Because they get to own, I mean, once they own a population, then, babies are coming fresh from the other side with all this information, and then in the average family, they're going to get their head filled with garbage. And that garbage comes from the organized groups. And it is purposeful. I mean, people go, oh, there's great wisdom in the holy books and whatever. It's just like, yeah, but what about that? I'm not saying you can't pull some wisdom that's coded in there, but the fact is there is a narrative in all books that is geared for your basic interpretation because it's written for average intelligence, which is the big part. Now, the interesting thing is, again, average is a meaning thing. The average intelligence is actually a combination of the people who below average intelligence and the people of above average intelligence. Yes, some people will fall there, but that average number is in many ways a made-up number. So this, I mean, the psychological damage to the human race is extensive. It could be probably fixed to the, in very short order. But people don't give up their beliefs very easily, no matter how much sense they don't make, because it's like mine. You're taking from me. There is the biggest. I mean, a part of the psychological, brokenness is a lot of adults operating from like kind of teenage and below emotional states. I mean, oh my God, we are a wreck. Hello, Soul Traveler. But keep on keeping on. It could, because it could change. It could change overnight. I'm going to type a 1 for yes and a 2 for no. Do you journey? Either imaginatively, shamanic. I mean, do you take your consciousness into realms that are not based in your body or the room you have your body in, and are able to get educated? Are you able to get educated without books or computer? That's great. Excellent. I don't know what a 0. I'm not sure what a 0 stands for, Callan, because it wasn't one of the options. But anyway, that's good. That's very good. I like what, not 1. Okay. It was, the basically, 1 if you do journey, and 2 if you do not get information, data from sources other than what we would call real world. In other words, where you journey and you sometimes have conversations, sometimes you get talked to, sometimes you get packages. By packages, I mean data packages. It's not like, somebody, I go into the other side and somebody hands me some nice tobacco or something. That's what I thought, Callan. When I saw the 0, I went like, oh, binary. Which, and of course, 0 would, if I recall my binary correctly, would mean what I had allotted 2 for, which would have been a no. So anyway, Doc said something that I liked, because it really ties into plugging. Come on here. These chats get a little bit goofy here. Where was it, Doc? Yeah. The reality is my dream. And the reason I like that, Doc, is because that's probably been a real qualitative difference, is the more I presence that we move within the consciousness of the wisdom goddess. And the interplay between, observer, quantum matter, and all the rest of that stuff, and the fact that there are different streams of contribution. There are times for me not to follow the chat, and this is one of them. I'll just put up, I'll put that up. So, and as I think I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it, but there's an exercise I like to do, which is just moving my hands through the air, and initially just enough so you can feel what there's air in the room. But then you start realizing that this is a medium, and that in many ways what we call air is a manifestation of our reality. It's part of our atmosphere. But you start getting into the dream quality of it. And I remember going to the point where then I would slow down, where you couldn't feel air, but then you could feel the resistance of the medium that we're in. Just like a fish is in water, we're in a medium. And the medium of her consciousness, once you kind of tie in and you can feel the air, then you move where it can't be air, and you can still feel it. And what you're feeling is her. And it knows that you're feeling her. And it knows that you know. And this is like a beginning of a communication. Since a lot of, Doc, you're here, you like things that Jesus said, ye are gods. But you have to understand where your godhood derives from, and also what is the nature of the gods, and which is why I thought the introductory that John gave about kind of the qualities. It isn't like, well, gee, if I'm a god, how come I can't burn holes through rock with my eyes? Why? I don't see a whole lot. I mean, and again, there are certain qualities that people think that if we're gods, we would have. And to me, it reminds me of the shit out of video games. What the wizards and people have these. What it is to do magic has been given to us by Hollywood, writers, cartoons, video games. There is this whole fake aspect of kind of like what magic and power is. And so if you're chasing what isn't power, what isn't God nature, it'll be hard for it to sit in you. The real power is love. So why would love want to stare at a rock and burn holes in it? The concepts of what power is, what a God power is, and whatever. You want to know what a God power is? Look at nature. Look at how the universe is constructed. It's awesome. It's awe-inspiring. Not frightening. The world is currently in a nightmare. And the reason it is a nightmare is the average human being on this planet is plugged into the nightmare generator. And you have to unplug from that first, and then you need to re-plug into where we really come from. And like I said, that to me that ties. I mean, all of this stuff that people get lost in, soul traps, whatever. That's all. All of that is if you have been seduced away from Mama. There's only soul traps for those who are clueless in creation and don't know who they belong to. If you know who you belong to, there's no soul traps. So to me, it behooves, if you have ever been concerned about soul traps, well, get plugged into where you belong and nobody can trap you. But if you're floating around without contracts or agreements, like one of the, to me, what was important for me, I was raised as an Episcopalian and an altar boy, was unbaptizing myself, unconfirming myself, saying I am not part of this system. I am not consecrated to the being that my parents opted to consecrate me to. I'm not part of that system. You do not have me. I break the agreement. They spoke for me. I'm now sovereign, can speak for myself. Agreement is broken. And that's kind of like start one. So, you kind of like, you break your old agreements, and then you create new agreements. And it will change your reality. And if enough of us can change our personal realities, it starts to become a world event. So now I want to speak a little bit on, how about daughters of Sophia, daughters of the wisdom goddess. Walter Bosley is a writer. He writes both fiction and nonfiction. When I have a little extra money, I'd want to go to Lulu and order his Empire of the Wheel books. And it's really interesting. When Walter Bosley was on Nox Mente, he found himself with some kindred spirits, and he opened up a little bit. Again, and a part of it is, because Walter does investigative books, credibility is important. So, like, there is stuff that he considers can sit in the real world and can be looked at from an objective perspective and still hold up. And then there are those experiences that we have that sometimes are more true than the objective reality, but that because of their subjective nature, it's best to kind of very often keep them tucked away. And largely just because, it's just like, Walter writes books of credibility. So if you're going to quote Walter, I guess you'd rather have a quote of something that has objective rather than where a lot of people who might not read his books might, he might say something off the cuff on YouTube, and then suddenly this part that is personal is more prominent than other things. I can see why he would want to manage his public, what he says publicly, with care. But certain things came out regarding Hecate. Now, apparently, from a little bit that I did, I don't want to get over a bit, it seemed to me that his primary way of identifying an energy would be Athena. I believe Athena and Hecate. Now, I have done some delving into the history, the story of Hecate. And it's a mess. She gets tied in with the Titans. The Titans are a really interesting departure into the world of fuckery. The absolute primordial Greek myth is Gaia and Uranus, mother and the sky god. To me, in many ways, it embodies both her masculine attributes, because the wind is a masculine part of the elementals. So in other words, you can see fire in the form of thing. The sky kind of manifests the more masculine aspects of a complete 4 to 5 element spirit. And of course, in an Aeon's case, she's 5 elements. But the world that we largely experience is 4 elements. But man, the more we can presence that 5th element, the more we'll really be working with things. But that's beyond that. So the primordial Greek myth, Gaia, mother, goddess, and then the sky god, in certain ways, besides being the kind of the more masculine aspects of the yin yang symbol, it could also be as a stand-in for the Parom. It's the sky. It's that other stuff, earth, and then that. And that was just kind of how the world existed. And then we start getting human accretions to the story, which is especially the Greek myths. And once the human accretions, to me, are now become the archontic insertions and narratives. And so the first archontic insertion into the primordial just myth of Pleroma and Gaia is that she was having children that Uranus thought were abominable. And then there's a website I want you to check out, because it's got a lot of short 5 and 10-minute videos. Let's see if I can. It's called Mythology and Fiction Explained. And like this one here, revisiting the story of Medusa. Okay, in a 6-minute and 23 section. Now, the interesting thing about Medusa was somebody on Minds, Dean Harkness, had done he's shown a very preliminary pencil he had done of something he had done of Medusa. But it was highly beautiful. And of course, if you are even, Medusa, she had snakes in her head. Well, that, to a Gnostic, the moment you start flying snakes around, now, of course, to the archontic world, snakes are, ooh, evil, blah, 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 blah. No, yeah, there were poisonous snakes, but whatever. But generally, from the old world perspective, the snake is about the ancient wisdom, Kundalini. I mean, it's got wholesome meanings to it. So reading, I always had the sense that there was something good about Medusa. And then when you at least the first, this is the second part, and I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet. Medusa was a human being who was probably one of the most ardent followers, and I think it was Artemis. It was one of the one of the Greek goddesses, what I will call the kind of archontic goddesses. And of course, why would I say that? Well, because apparently Medusa had beautiful hair, even more beautiful than the goddess. And something had happened where Medusa wanted to do the right thing. The goddess didn't provide her the information, so Medusa did the wrong thing because she didn't have the right information. And then the goddess blamed her for doing the wrong thing, and her revenge turned her beautiful hair into snakes, and any man she looked at would turn into stone. Typical god fuckery. In this case, it's a goddess, but to me, the word God to me is gender neutral. It's them. So basically, Medusa was this human being full of great, trying to help the goddess and meant to do everything right, but the goddess was jealous. Jealousy and envy is the signature of of Yaldabaoth and the Archons. That is their signature. That is the form of their, that is the cause of their fuckery. So Medusa, so again, here comes, Medusa is turned into this terrible thing, but that's because she's human. She brings all these wonderful human attributes, and to me, from a Gnostic perspective, her punishment was because she danced with Archontic goddesses. And I don't believe in punishment, but they do. So she danced with Archons. Archons practice punishment, so she ended up getting punished. Let's get back to Hecate. So we kind of get into this kind of coming out of the primordial calm and beauty of just Gaia and Uranus. Now we have that she's birthing other beings. That makes sense to me. I mean, besides the panspermia that would be settling in the whole animal life, there were, there's the whole supernatural thing. So she's credited with kind of creating this being with 50 heads and 50 pairs of arms. I mean, it's pretty, I would recommend watching that group, that person's thing on Hecate. But really what emerges is nobody can really place her parents. In certain cases, she's from the Titans. So to me, part of what we need to do when we're watching the Titans emerge out of the primordial, cleaner aspect of the mysteries is that you can drop things into, let's call it Gaia's womb that she didn't birth. So she might have had all these beings, but then again, the people who are coming with the new narrative now, they're going to now, because again, the whole Titans is the narrative onto the primordial narrative. So what do? We have Yaldabaoth posing as Kronos, inserting himself. And of course, if you know the cosmic creation story of how Yaldabaoth comes into being through Gaia coming splattering into this quadrant of the galactic arms, in a certain way, she is his mother. So we kind of have Kronos creeping into the narrative, in this case creeping into her womb, to be one of her children. So in many ways, this is the insertions. There's a few techniques that are part of how the new religions, basically the new cosmologies, insert themselves initially into the old. Basically, what is this is the original culture. This is the culture trying to take it over. And so again, there's all these insertions and crazy. Basically bullshit. I am getting that Hecate is a daughter of Gaia. One of the things she has in common with Athena was chaste, and Hecate had no time for lovers either, but they were very different, especially in my journeying, but even in just logic. Athena is chaste in the anti-natural archontic way, where being chaste is a virtue rather than a choice. Okay? When chastity is a virtue, you know that ain't natural. Being chaste yourself can be natural, but when it's held up as like righteousness, what? Having children isn't righteous? So this is, and of course the word righteous, which is what the Zadoks are. Righteous is not a Gaian term. We do things correctly. We do what is right in a given moment. The whole idea of righteous, that's archontic. That's Abrahamic. Again, we do the right thing, but righteous, this whole, stiff, right? I mean, you can kind of tell the artifice and the, almost like what Jesus talked about, you're all, like white on the outside, but filthy on the inside. that kind of righteousness is, getting out the white plaster paint and spraying a turd with it. So, but with Hecate, Hecate also is basically only comes out at night. Even when she was helping other people, she doesn't just help the meter. She's helped. There's a story. She's always helping people, but she works at night. During the day, she goes to a cave and rests. She's very busy. And the tie-in with the wheel, man, that is a journey. But the wheel is huge. The wheel is very, very huge. But the wheel's also portals, doorways, and that's the other thing. Okay, so kind of like, what's the lore around her? Well, the three nature, the crone, the maiden, and the woman, is a fairly ancient motif to me, almost. When you get into the helpful energy of Hecate, power, but again, helpful if you can help each other. She's no nonsense, and so in many ways the virgin aspect of her, she hasn't had time to do any hair pulling. She works really hard throughout the nights, and then she has to recover her energy by resting, and then she emerges and she's got duties to do. Hair pulling, apparently, there's just no time for it. So in many ways, what I find in Hecate is a goddess so busy working with the humans and interfacing between the other energies. There's just no time for romance. It isn't a case of chastity. It's just like, there's just no time. I mean, I'm heading to my cave to recover so I'm ready to work the next night. I don't have an extra hour to pull hair and glaze myself. I need to rest. And that's what I kind of get. That there is, it's not like that ooh, I'm chaste, I'm pure. No, I'm busy. She's busy. And I've listened to a few, some of the people, and it's really, you see some young people, they're really sweet, and they come in, and some, some are more interesting than others. But they all come away with the same thing. She is no bullshit. And it's kind of like the goddess with like this work ethic. So she is known for the crossroads, and that's part of where the 3 comes in also, and doorways. And what I'm getting about the doorways is part, because crossroads is tying in with the wheel. My name, Radagast. Rad in many ways means a wheel, a radiance, a chakra, a portal. Because the wheel and portals, because of their roundness, I mean, a chakra could be considered a wheel, but a chakra is also a portal. So now we have the connection of portals and wheels. And it can be a wheel, can be a portal, and many times it's both. Powerful tie-in. Because what else is she also considered to be goddess of? The Kundalini. And what is the Kundalini? The movement of that energy through the portals of the chakras. Goddess, the wheels. And then there was like another interest. Apparently, now some people say lavender. Lavender is associated with Mercury. And even before they said that, there was almost like, Mercury is the messenger of the gods. In many ways, this wheel function of Hecate, she is kind of like the hub of all of communications from, different other deiforms that I consider to be, like deiform offspring of the wisdom goddess. Okay, I'm going to take a break there, see what's going on, because Hecate to me is huge, and she's moving through people. So I want to see what's going on in the chat. Wow, a whole, well, got to. Wow. Yeah, Monk and Hermit is very good, but boy, she keeps real busy. Wow, quite a bit went on while I went on. Okay. Man, it was amazing how much I've had to scroll up. So at least I know I don't have to worry if I'm boring anybody, because there's plenty going on in the chat here. All right. So now I can begin reading now. I got to the top of where our last was. Okay. Well, with Lee, you say the Greco-Roman mythos is interesting. It's really kind of, I mean, the Greeks are not the Pelasgians. The Greeks who basically became the Hellenic Greeks, they were invaders of the area. So they appropriate a lot, and then the Romans stole even more. So for me, the Greeks were the first ones to kind of march into the ancient world and start fucking it up and bringing their nonsense and war. And then the Romans conquered the Greeks. But in each case, so the Romans conquered the Greeks, but the Greeks had conquered the Pelasgians, or were kind of like the original people. And in each case, you get it degrading. And in each case, each one is claiming the other ones. So I tend, if I'm going to pull from mythology, I do from the Greeks, because again, they start with just Gaia and Uranus, and that's a very balanced and honest, simple mythos to begin with. And also from that you can see the insertions. You can see how something clean. You can see when they take the chamber pot from the night before and start dipping it into the Gaian myth, as they empty the Archontic chamber pot into a wholesome story. Anyway, let me finish reading the chat here and catch up with you guys. Anisha, I'd love to see that poem. Yeah, Lilith wasn't a demon. Once again, if you read anything from the Abrahamic text that says bad demon, you need to reverse that. That's just an automatic thing with Abrahamic texts. If it calls somebody a demon, chances are it's one of us that did something that they didn't like. Inverse, the more you inverse, especially again when there's finger pointing and name calling, reverse who's good, who's bad, and you'll stay closer to the truth when it comes to the Abrahamic scriptures. Oh, hello, Robin. Hey, Reemsy. Well, I just read the chat. Now I need to go cry. So Hecate. And the other thing, why I started kind of exploring that, is, I mean, you can hook into Mama, but Mama's got a huge show to run, and I can understand why she might have enlisted or birthed other spirits to play an intermediate, closer to our cognition and language usage. Another thing, my birth path, based on on the day I was born, is an 8. So letters, names that begin with a specific letter, that's kind of, that's the cornerstone of any name. So for Hecate, H would be a cornerstone letter. Now, there's also Agate. There's different things, but it seems like it comes with an H in most cases. H is an 8 letter. Z is an 8 letter also. And what would be the other one? I. Right, what comes before I? Oh, H. Okay, so this H is 8. I. So I'm kind of, I know Z is also an 8, and I'm losing the other one because I'm not. The math is not working in my head. Some of you will probably put it in chat. It'll be fine with me. So in other words, since my birth path is 8, there's for me a name beginning with 8, like an 8 letter, in this case the H, there's a certain resonance for there. Now another goddess form has also attracted my attention, and that would be another H, Hestia. Hestia is the goddess of the home, feeding people meals, hospitality, specifically the hearth, kind of the keeping of the hearth. Now, my name Radagast is all the vowels in it are A, but I've seen people spell it different ways, and there is a spelling of Radegast, and if you would spell it that way and put it into any search engine, you would come up with a Slavonic. In this case, it would be it's normally in the Czech Republic now. You would come up with a Slavonic deity named Radagast. Radagast was the patron deity of home and hearth. So, my name is Radagast. Take that same name into Czechoslovakia. They also have a Radagast beer. But it's based on, again, home and hearth. Somebody comes in, you offer them a nice beverage. A beer would be pleasant for certain people, very refreshing. It would be something a Radagast would recommend. So here I am with working, like again, exploring, looking into seeding possibilities, putting it out there with certain, again, the whole thing when you're working with other consciousness is, is this a good team? I mean, I'm a bass player, not every guitar player wants to play with me, other ones do. So it's kind of like similar, it's like, hey, I got some skills. Anybody, are there any natural allies? So one is I would use my birth path and look for keystone things, H's. But then we have Hecate tied in with the wheel, and Rad means a wheel. Then we have Hestia, goddess of home and hearth, and my full name Radagast tying in with the Slavonic deity of home and hearth. So this kind of would be my raison d'etre for presencing these particular deiforms in my consciousness to see whether or not there are alliances to be had or made. One has been quite communicative and the other one hasn't. But the courtship has been longer, and the other one has, we're thinking about a love letter. Okay, so I'm coming up at the 2-hour mark, probably getting ready to close the show. I think I've said about as many things as I can, so let's see if there's anything in the chat. So you like Hestia too, huh, Nish? I am so surprised. I would have never thought that. It could be what I was reading, Jessica. I'm quite sure it could be found on Meta History. I think it was being mirrored by Hans Carlson on a site he has that he dedicates to the work of John Lash called Weebly. But yeah, you could find everything. Yeah, Meta History is the repository for all of that, and usually would find it under the Sophianic or the Fallen Goddess scenario, the FGS. Yeah, I want to read more. You know, I mean, if I'm gonna try and bring some clarity, I think I would behoove me to read from Meta History and not from the Nag Hammadi scriptures. Just I really think that the thing is to bring it's relatively simple. It's not particularly long. I think once you insert yourself in it, we can go forever and have a lot of fun. Good night, Mari. Or afternoon, or whatever it is down there. Okay, so I guess we're done. Well, thank you for joining another another stream of Can't You Hear Me Gnostic. I will continue Gnosticking on Monday nights for the foreseeable future. I will also continue kind of, just doing, pre-recorded things that start really kind of pursuing some of the fun I have making music, because that's another way of saying things. So, have a good week, whatever good is for you. Think, think about, think about wisdom, or Sophia, if you wish to call wisdom that. Think about this planet is the embodiment of that wisdom consciousness. And the world that was built on that planet is its adversary. Try to remember, if once you plug in, just try, remember that you can enter into the consciousness stream of the goddess Sophia. And then you have a foot in two worlds. And the more attention you pay to the real organic world, you'd be surprised that there are effects that are best not spoken of, because certain things can break spells. But I highly recommend entering the dream, agreeing to be a part of the dream, knowing you're in there, knowing where the nightmare comes from, knowing it's from a separate consciousness that has infected billions of humans. And then dream on. My love to you all, and my gratitude for the audience. And be well. So I'm going to go into my thing here. I'm going to hit stop streaming, and then